Welcome to Backstage with Richard Ridge. The Shakespeare Theatre Company, located in Washington, D.C., is one of the nation's most celebrated regional theatre companies. Their latest production is director Darryl Cloran's critically acclaimed reimagined As You Like It. It's now the 1960s, and flower power, peace, and love are in the air. The free-spirited Rosalind is exiled from court and escapes to an alternative community where everything is possible. It melds together Shakespeare's verse with the beloved classic music of the Beatles. And audiences are falling in love with this production that has been extended now through January 14th. And my guest has received glowing notices as Rosalind. Please welcome Chelsea Rose.
Hi.
How are you? First off, how are you and where are you?
I'm great. A little tired. We've been doing 8 shows a week as per usual, but I'm here in DC at our hotel, which has been really, really nice. So, yeah.
Well, the show has now been extended through January 14th. How exciting is that?
It's pretty amazing. I don't know if any of us were expecting it to. I mean, we were hoping that it would get to that, but clearly the audiences are enjoying it. It's selling well, and they've been able to extend it twice now, which is pretty incredible.
How much fun are you having doing the show at the beautiful Shakespeare Theatre in DC?
I love the Harmon Hall Theater. It is an absolutely gorgeous theater to be in. The people that we're working with, there's such an amazing team. I had no idea you could have so many people involved, and it was just this whole experience has been really lovely with everyone at STC. And I just love doing the show in that space. It's very different from where we did it outside in Vancouver. So it's really nice to be in the Harmon Hall.
So talk about that. So you did it at the Bard, right, in Vancouver?
Yes, we did it at Bard on the Beach, which is been around for over 30 years now. It's a beautiful space out on the beach in a park in a massive tent that seats about 700 and something people. But it is outside, so you do have the elements to deal with, which definitely can change things on a rainy day. You got to be a little bit louder, and it can get cold. So it was a beautiful experience though to be on a beach doing Shakespeare.
That must have been amazing. I've spoken to so many people who have done like Shakespeare in the Park in New York or the Delacorte or the Globe in London or all these outdoor theaters. I mean, there's no better place to do Shakespeare seriously than outside where you're starting it all out. Like, were there
It's
crazy nights where it rained or like.
Oh yeah, we had all the weather. We were doing the show from about May until the end of September. So we went through all of summer and the extreme heat. We had windy days where the confetti that comes down was just blowing into the audience and all the smoke just goes into the audience. And yeah, the rain got pretty intense sometimes.
Well, from May to September. So you're sort of going like from the end of spring into the heat of summer.
Yes, and then at night in September, of course, it starts getting a lot chillier.
So, what has made this experience of As You Like It so special for you here in DC?
Here in DC, the experience has been pretty incredible because it's a different audience here. In Vancouver, a lot of people come to Bard on the Beach because it's something they do every year and they really enjoy doing that. But here at STC, people really come for the Shakespeare and they come often for it and they know it. And so we've been getting some really cool responses from the audiences. They've been laughing at a lot more of the text parts that we weren't getting the same laughs at before, and some different understandings, which has been very interesting to just hear the different reactions here.
No, because like you said, I love the that STC gets. I mean, these people, not just diehard Shakespeare fans, they like to see the reimagined, the reinvented, and they get a very young audience there, which I think is fascinating. They're like, oh my God, this is the 1960s and the Beatles. What a cool way to do As You Like It.
Oh yeah, and you can tell the real Beatles fans right away. You can hear them as the songs start go, and they're so excited and they sing along and they get really into it.
Well, you have received some glowing notices for playing this role. I don't know if you read them or not, but what do you love the most about playing her, especially this version of her?
I think, I did study As You Like It in college, and I found that I really related to Rosalind in a lot of ways. I like to have a lot of fun. I can get myself into trouble pretty easily. And I also can be extremely vulnerable. And so I find a lot of myself in who she is. And it's kind of fun because I almost get to play two parts, because she does play herself and then she dresses up as Ganymede. It's still Rosalind, but she's being a different character, and it's quite fun to be able to do that.
So, did I read that this production was the first time you've done Shakespeare?
I did do a small version of Caesar once before this, but it was a very like three-person small production. But otherwise, this was the first time I've even auditioned for Shakespeare. I kind of felt like it was a club that I didn't belong in. I was the musical theater girl and the girl in a band, but not quite the Shakespeare person. And it was pretty cool to get asked to come in to audition for it. And I finally was understanding Shakespeare more than I ever did before. When I was younger, I just didn't quite grasp what was happening. But something has clicked in the last couple of years, and I really, really enjoy the words now.
So, how intense was that audition process for this? Like, you're like, I may go in, I don't want to go in, I don't know if I'm going to be good at this. Like, what was it like?
Well, it was interesting. I was in the middle of rehearsals for Sound of Music. And so I was really focused on that. And when they asked me to come in, I honestly said I didn't know if I'd have the time because I was just so immersed in Sound of Music. But they said they'd make time for me. And so I thought, okay, I will give this more of a shot. But I wasn't super nervous. I had work coming up the next year. I wasn't worried about it. I hadn't really put myself out there for it. So it allowed me to relax a lot more. And I think that really helped to just not be desperate for it, you know?
You know, it's interesting because Shakespeare is so musical. Every actor that I've spoken to said if you follow the rhythms of
Mhm.
the way he writes, it's funny. When I was growing up too, I thought to myself, I'm never going to understand Shakespeare. I was like, you know, that the first act for me in Shakespeare, you really have to focus because there's so much exposition and you just have to focus on all the characters. So by the time of the end of the first act, you're like, oh my God, I love all these people. Now I know who they all are.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, he speaks in metaphor constantly. So if you're not quite following that, it's hard to catch up. And we always talk about having to put on your Shakespeare ears, and it takes a few minutes to get really into what you're hearing and understanding it.
I want to talk about your incredible director who also, I think, reimagined and conceived this production, Daryl Cloran, right?
Yes, Daryl.
What makes him one of the most sought after directors, and what made this so wonderful for you to sort of be entered into this beautiful world of As You Like It? Now you're in Shakespeare forever. Just so you know, this is
Yes,
your calling.
I hope so.
What makes him
uh,
a great director?
I had heard his name so many times, and I'd worked at his theater, but not with him directly. And one of the things I was most excited about was getting to work with him. I'd heard so many wonderful things, and the wonderful things are all true. He is extremely generous, extremely kind. He is so ambitious, and he really wants everyone to feel comfortable. So he knows what he wants, but he gives us so much room to play within that. And he'll let us know if it's not working, but he always does it with a smile on his face. He'll kind of tell you like, that didn't really work, did it? No? Okay. So you always still feel good about it when it doesn't work out, but he's just a very, very kind human, and I really enjoy working with him.
Well, I love this reimagined production. I love the 60s. I love everything about it. I mean, the clothes and the music. I mean, how magical is it playing this during that time period and like living in this magical fantasy world of the 60s?
It really works. It's incredible how well it works. The colorfulness, it just adds to the comedy, it adds to the fun. And just the Beatles music just somehow fits so well. It helps each scene to be understood better, for everyone to really understand what these characters are going through when you just burst into a Beatles song that you already know. It is magical. And going to the Forest of Arden, and it's almost the Dorothy into Oz kind of. All of a sudden, the Technicolor happens, and it does really feel magical.
So, did you know the Beatles catalog really well? I know you're a musician too.
I did and I didn't. I've been surprised by a couple of the songs that I'd never heard. I had been like a White Album fan. My parents, I didn't really grow up with the Beatles as much, but I did know so many of the popular songs. But there were a few, like Secret, I'd never heard that one before. And I didn't even realize Helter Skelter was in the Beatles catalog. So there were a few new ones for me, which was really exciting.
What are some of the favorite that you do in the show?
There is a medley we do at the end of Act One of I Want to Hold Your Hand and 8 Days a Week. And that is my favorite part in the whole show. It's the most exciting. We're full of energy. We have all our hopes and dreams and everything's working out, and there's a little more dancing in that spot. And I just love that. I love that part.
What's your favorite part that you like to hear off stage or whatever that someone else does in the show?
There are a couple. I think everyone in the show is brilliant. I really enjoy when Sylvius does his number off the top. What is it called now? I can't
I,
even think of the name of it.
I put you on the spot on this, but I'm just saying, like, just
That's okay.
yeah, like there's so many. Like, I read all the songs that are in this show, and I'm like, wow, what a beautiful mix of different Beatle numbers. And when you read all the reviews, the critics are like, wow, this works so beautifully.
Yeah.
Like these songs were written for this production.
Yes, yes. You know what one of my most favorite parts is the I Am the Walrus song. It starts in text and you can hear the Beatles fans start to realize that it's the song that's gonna happen. And it just always gets such big cheers when it finally starts. It sounds so great.
Well, let's take it back to the audience again. I mean, like I said, I love the audience that STC gets. I mean, it's young, it's older, it's parents, it's kids, youngins trying to learn Shakespeare for the very first time, and they all have a really great time. I mean, what that means to you as an actress working there, and just watching how this production is affecting audiences.
Yeah, again, these audiences, like you said, they're very vast and different and so excited. And I think it takes them all a minute to realize what they're in for. And when you hear them just get really into it all of a sudden, you know you've got them and you know you're on the journey together, and it feels really good. Every audience has been so welcoming. I've really enjoyed. We have a thrust stage, and so there are a lot of audience members that are almost on stage with us, and you can hear the tittering and the laughter, and you can see their faces, and it really feels good to have them that close.
Yeah. Do you get to meet the audience afterwards? Do you sign at the stage door, or is that allowed
No,
yet?
we don't really do any stage door signings, and I'm kind of one who just bows my head and gets on the metro and goes home right away. But it is fun because I do end up taking the metro with a lot of patrons, and nobody knows who I am. So I can sit beside them and just kind of listen to them talk about the show, which is interesting.
You're like, oh, what did you see tonight? Oh, great,
Yeah.
you love it. That's so nice. I
Yeah.
It's like when we leave the park in New York City, the same thing. You get on the C train or whatever, and you're riding with half the cast, and everyone's got a program from the park, and everyone's just living, buzzing in the moment of what they just saw.
Yes. And I love hearing them trying to figure out things when they're like, I'm not sure if I got that. Is that exactly what happened? Just hearing those little conversations is great.
Well, that's the best thing about theater, and that's the best thing about Shakespeare too. When people leave something and they all have conversations about what they saw, I'm like, oh, I saw this, I saw that. Oh, I didn't pick up on that. That's so awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
So when you first saw yourself done up in all this 1960s costume and wigs and your change of clothes, like what went through your mind?
My favorite costume is the Ganymede costume. I love wearing the suit. It's so colorful. It's so much fun. Originally, in the photos, I had a mustache, and I was really excited to get to wear that, but we didn't keep it. But yeah, I love the color. They've done a really good job of making everything pop and feel very 60s. But yeah, I love putting on that suit. The pink shirt is just fantastic.
Because you look like the fifth Beatle in those
Yeah.
pictures.
Yes.
So I can only imagine when you saw yourself, wow, I could be a Beatle too.
Totally. Absolutely.
You know, when I look at your resume, I realize you have played so many musical instruments in so many of the roles that you played in the past. I know you said when you went in for the audition for this, you were just working on The Sound of Music. I mean,
Mhm.
Maria, of course, plays the guitar. I know you played the guitar because I watched all your videos and everything else online. I'm like, boy, she's good. Not only can she sing, act, and dance, she also plays the instruments.
Oh.
Did you have to learn the guitar for The Sound of Music, or did you already know it when you played Maria?
I've already been playing guitar since I was a teenager. When I was 13 years old, I was given my first electric guitar, and it was the best gift ever. But I don't play as often as I'd like, so I did have to practice a lot to get back into it. And I actually just finished a show in Victoria, British Columbia, where I played piano, guitar, and Rhodes, which was a beautiful, fun show to do as well. I love getting to play an instrument in a show.
So, what was that show you just did? You played all those instruments.
I just did I Think I'm Fallen, which is a Joni Mitchell show. Gorgeous show at the Belfry Theatre in Victoria. It's all Joni Mitchell's music, and every single one of us on stage switches instruments throughout the whole show and plays a beautiful concert. Yeah.
So, what were the instruments you played again in that?
I played guitar, tambourine, piano, and the Rhodes.
I
Yes.
love that. See, tambourine, I could probably do. That's the one instrument. I remember growing up, we all wanted to be a rock and roll band. So, before I got a tambourine, my grandmother gave us maracas. So I was like, we're going to play maracas to the monkeys and all this stuff in our garage. But I could play that. The tambourine, I think, is one of the best instruments in the world.
Oh, it's great as long as you can keep a beat, because that's actually the hardest thing for me is the tambourine, because it's like, oh, I gotta really stay on for this.
But you played the hand drums in a show I cannot pronounce. What was that show? It's two names.
Yes, it's called Thawaxia, the Hungry Feast Dish, and it is an indigenous play about all these spirit animals and how they deal with their world. And in that show, we all played hand drum. So we actually made our own drums for it too. We had an indigenous elder come and teach us how to make these drums, which was pretty incredible. And I played a Sasquatch. I did that show for over 5 years. It's a very fun show.
No, I'm fascinated by that. And then you did Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, where you played the harmonica.
Yes, that's probably the hardest one, I think, to learn. It's very finicky. I wouldn't call myself a virtuoso by any means. I can play a couple of songs, but that's about it.
But you could add it to your resume, right? It's on your resume.
Yeah, it is.
So in Dolly Parton's Smoky Mountain Christmas Carol, what's the jaw harp?
Okay, that is such a hard one to explain. It's this little piece of metal that you hold against your lips and you flick it, and it makes a really cool sound. And again, I learned how to play it enough to play in one song, but it's very fun.
That's cool. I had many conversations with Dolly Parton during 9 to 5, and she talked about when she did the song 9 to 5, when you hear that stuff that sounds like the washing thing, it's all her nails.
Yes, her fingernails. I
So
love that story.
did anybody play fingernails in your show?
I don't, you know what? We really should have, but nobody did. Nobody did. Now that I think of it, when we revive it, hopefully we will.
When you go back, and of course the guitar. The Sound of Music is one of my all-time favorite shows. I've seen numerous clips of you online. You look like you were a glorious Maria in that show. How much fun was it playing her?
Oh my gosh, that is an absolute dream role. And I don't feel like I actually have any other dream roles. That's it. I got to play that. I am a massive Julie Andrews fan. I grew up with that show, and there's so much heart. It was a beautiful production. I loved the children, and they're all still friends. I still talk to the children. It was magical.
Because growing up, I think my three favorite films was The Wizard of Oz, of course, in television, Mary Poppins, and The Sound of Music. Those are my three when I was like 4, 5, and 6. And I was obsessed, and all during the pandemic. I would literally, my husband would say, "What do you want to watch tonight?" I'm like, "We have to watch The Sound of Music again." So I'd pull the Blu-ray out and just get lost in that film. Like, it would make you so happy, especially during the pandemic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Mary Poppins, that would be another dream role if I could do that one.
Oh, I'm sure that's going to be on your resume sooner. Than you're also an award-winning songwriter and musician. How much joy does songwriting and being a musician give you?
It is such a different release from my musical theater stuff and from the straight plays. Playing in my band, which is a rock metal band, is a very different experience. It allows me to just release in a different way. Writing gives me a chance to say things that I might not say normally, to put into words how I've been feeling about a situation or a person that's hurt me in the past, or it really feels good to be able to get that out there. And it's even better when I actually get to perform it. So writing it is one thing, but when I actually get out there and sing those words, it feels really, really good.
Isn't it great when you're a creative person and you can take personal things in your life? That's what the best songwriters do. It's almost like instant therapy, that you can put it into a song and then you put it out there and people be like, "Oh my gosh, I feel the same exact thing," or "I went through that same exact thing that
Yeah.
Chelsea did."
Yes, when people can relate, and there's
Yeah,
there's really nothing better than when people know my music at shows and are singing along with me. That feels incredible.
that is great. Well, finally, if you could sum up the best part of the experience of working on As You Like It this holiday season, Chelsea, what is it for you?
I think it's got to be the joy that this show brings. No matter how hard it can be when you're on the road, as soon as I'm on stage doing that show, I'm having a blast. We are all having the best time. I'm working with my friends, and we are making people laugh and making people feel good, and singing about love. And it's a joyful thing to get to do this show, especially
Yeah,
at this time.
because most of the cast did this with you at the bar on the beach.
Yes, most of us did it all together, and the newer people to the show have done it before, so they knew the show, but they just haven't done it with us. And we've become very close very quickly.
But it must be so great to have had that wonderful experience of starting out your path with Shakespeare up there with this glorious reimagined production, and then realizing, "Oh my gosh, we're going to do it again at STC during the
Yeah.
holiday season in DC."
Yeah, I feel extremely lucky to have had this be my first experience doing it. I couldn't have asked for a better part in a better show.
Is there another Shakespeare role now that you're sort of like getting into it, like, and maybe I'd like to tackle this one next, or you're sort of reading about one like, I want to do play her?
Sure. I mean, I did get to play Portia in Julius Caesar, and I really enjoyed that over the summer. I got to do that because we did it in rep. Um, uh, I really like the strong ones. I want to play Lady M. I want to do Taming of the Shrew. I want to play, those big, strong characters. So there isn't one that I'd say no to, I don't think.
Well, get ready, because this is a new path you're taking with Shakespeare. Well, once again, Chelsea Rose is one of the stars of As You Like It, which has been extended through January 14th at STC, the Shakespeare Theatre Company in Washington, D.C. For tickets, go to shakespearetheatre.org. Chelsea, thank you for joining me today at Broadway World.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Everybody, happy holidays. Go to the theater, and if you're in Washington, go to STC and see this beautifully reimagined 1960s with the Beatles production of As You Like It. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.